So we're on to our next guest here. We've got Andy Thomas with Craft Brew Alliance coming on. Andy, how you doing?
Doing well, Justin. How you doing?
I'm doing well. We should have got you one of these.
Sharp today.
Oh, thanks, man. I had it dressed down yesterday.
There you go.
So you're enjoying the conference so far?
Very much.
Yeah?
Very much. Yeah, I thought this morning was really interesting. Thought, Lester's comments and Bart's were really thought-provoking, and Vivian's is just a brave new world out there for us.
Is it a scary new world, though?
I wouldn't call it scary,
Yeah.
but I do think it's uncharted water in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about Vivian's comments were, I think a lot of folks are looking at a lot of disparate things happening right now in the industry and trying to make sense of them instead of just acknowledging, it's going to have an impact. We're not quite sure how. But the worst thing to do is just assume it's business as usual because it's anything but that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I really thought there was a lot of food for thought there.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the industry, we are seeing so many mergers and acquisitions going on. And you guys, you've been a player in the past.
Yep.
And what's sort of your strategy moving forward? What are we going to see from Craft Brew Alliance as far as M&A going forward?
I think, we have a pretty well-known partner strategy. So, in a world where people are, either looking to fully acquire people or, it's all or nothing, we're kind of in between. So what we like to do is find, brewers who are in geographies that are interesting to us, who are doing really interesting things in the local market, who are really tied to their local community, and who we can work with to basically grow both of our businesses. So we call it our planting seed strategy. We look for folks who are small and help them grow and help them to realize their vision. And that was the case with Appalachian Mountain in Boone, A&B, former Startup Brewery Challenge winner. And in a way, even with a brand like Cisco that's been around for decades, there's a lot of the same elements of that in there, where it's a complementary approach instead of kind of an assimilation approach.
Are we going to see, are you guys looking? Are you?
Yes. One of the joys of being a publicly traded company is, I can say things consistently in a lot of places. And, as I talked about even on our most recent earnings call or in, some road shows, we are still very partnership-minded. And we haven't been shy about the geographies that are interesting to us. The Southeast is fascinating to us, as is the Southwest, in particular. And, we're in active conversations with a lot of folks. But it isn't terribly formulaic, and it's like any relationship. You've got to go out there, you've got to date a little while, you've got to get to know each other before you decide, what that next step is. And we've learned a lot with the first couple of partnerships that we've had, and I think we're smarter for it. So we're trying to be very deliberate in making sure that, the next steps we take are really calculated and they're really good for everybody involved.
So are you doing some dating now?
We're doing some dating now.
Yeah.
And, it's an interesting time in the market because, valuations are what they are, and everybody has their spin on whether they're going to go down or whether there's going to be a bubble or and what's going to burst and what's going to happen and what the role of private equity is. But in a lot of ways, similar to Vivian's kind of bottom line, and it's going to change. It's going to impact the world. I think the M&A market is evolving so rapidly that even the norms of last week are a little bit different as you look forward. And that changes too, based on some of the data that we saw from, from Lester and from Bart, where, you look at the impact that some of the major brewers have had with their acquisitions and how that starts to reshape the landscape and how that starts to have an impact on wholesalers and on retailers and how that all trickles down. It all loops back to the valuation for those companies ultimately. And that's something that's really in flux right now, I'd say. Yeah.
You've got one of the things that came out recently with I think it was your last earnings report was just how well Kona is doing.
Yeah.
So what do you sort of attribute to the success of that brand?
Yeah, I think for me it all comes down to relevance, and we try to put labels on brands or try to put labels on movements, to make it easy for us to understand. But for consumers, be it wine or spirits or a beer, it comes down to, is it a relevant choice for them in that occasion? So you bring that all the way back to your question on Kona. I think Kona inherently is a relevant brand because it's from a very relevant place, which is Hawaii. And everybody knows Hawaii. It's universally appealing. Everybody knows what Hawaii stands for. And everybody wants a little bit of liquid aloha in their life. And in a lot of ways, Kona is a kind of a craft version of a lot of the success that Corona has had with telling people to find your beach, or your beach is wherever you want it to be. So I think the key to Kona success is in its relevance. I think it is fortunate to be born where it's born, in Hawaii, in a place that has such universal appeal. And I think, we've done, and I credit our marketing folks and I credit the folks managing the brand. I think we've been able to start to bring that forward in a really authentic and relevant way, while at the same time making it available to new consumers and new markets. So, it's a matter of taking something that inherently is true to the brand and intrinsic to the brand, that relevance of Hawaii and that ethos, and making it available to more people.
And I've noticed other brands, Red Hook and Widmer, have had a little bit of struggles lately. How do you sort of turn that around for these like longtime brands?
I think, again, I'll go back to the relevance component. I think if you look at Widmer Brothers and Red Hook, and if you look at any of those brands that Lester and Bart showed this morning on kind of, the top 10 brands that were declining, a lot of those folks, like Red Hook and Widmer Brothers, had early mover advantage. And they were able to sweep across the country outside of their home market and satisfy a need and play a role that was relevant to consumers in that market in the absence of anything else. In all of those cases, Red Hook, Widmer Brothers, a lot of the numbers you're seeing up there for Boston, the numbers you're seeing even for brands like Sierra Nevada, when you get outside of your home geography, all of a sudden that first mover advantage goes away, and there are really good local brands that can substitute or take over that occasion and play that relevance role for the consumer. So I think for Red Hook and Widmer Brothers, their early success in being nationally available turned into an Achilles heel for them. And we've actively been kind of pulling back and retrenching to home markets earlier on Widmer Brothers than on Red Hook. And we're seeing really good success for Widmer Brothers in Oregon. Heifa again grew in last quarter. And I think to be able to take a brand that's been around as long as Widmer Brothers has in a style like Heifa and restore it to growth in a competitive beer market like Oregon really gives us a lot of faith that kind of our home market strategy and not trying to sell brands outside where they have that intrinsic relevance is really a good one for us. So a lot further along on Widmer Brothers. Still some bumps in the road for Red Hook as that brand kind of pulls back to its home market, but it's out of the same playbook on both brands.
So what are you looking forward to rest of the conference here?
Rest of the conference, a lot of this, just chatting about kind of what's happening in our world, being able to do some great networking. I think, one of the things this conference always does is offer some thought-provoking speakers, but offers a good chunk of time for folks to be able to chat about it in the moment. So looking forward to doing more of that.
Andy, thank you so much for taking the time out, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Justin.